electricity. The rest of us didn't have electricity at that time. Someone who has shared an awful lot of time and help, and has written a book also about her family history, is Dorothy Spalding, and Dorothy has been extremely helpful to me. I really, really appreciate it. Dorothy, will you stand? About the Lincoln family and the rodeo, the world champion rodeos, and Dorothy has always been extremely supportive. Thank you, Dorothy. Her sister Leona and I sat across from each other in geography class. And in 7th and 8th grade, we had a teacher who didn't have a lot of control. And they were a bunch of wild guys. You didn't come to Belfry until high school, did you know? No. And had but 7th and 8th grade was really wild. The teacher could not get control. He was from Merritt, by the way. Anyway, he could not get control of the class, and we just didn't study very much. But one day the principal showed up, and everybody took their books out real fast, and we acted like we had been studying very, very hard. Well, I had written a note to Leona, and Leona got her book out. The note had been written many months before, and it was an awful note about lecherous liaisons and everything that my teacher had done. I had no proof of it whatsoever, but I was making accusations that were totally unfounded. And so the principal read this, and he turned white, looking at what I'd written about the teacher. And then he proceeded to take it up to the blackboard, right, and post it on the blackboard up there where everybody could see. Then he wrote a note to my parents telling me about this awful note. There were no other consequences after that. I think it was just public humiliation. But Leona, stand up. You haven't forgotten that yet. I'm going to tell this story on Bill Rivers. Bill was not in my class, but my brother was a little younger, and he talked about one day Bill Rivers got up and was doing a funny monologue in front of the whole school, maybe even parents. And it might have been a little risque, but everybody thought it was just hilarious, except my parents, who were a little more conservative. And anybody in this room who knew my parents knew that they were a little more conservative. And my parents sat there like this, not laughing at all. And my brother was so humiliated. And Bill had the whole place in an absolute uproar. But my parents did not ever crack a smile. And my brother never forgets that day because he was so embarrassed. Was it Bill?
Yeah.
Well, I can't remember what it was. Of course, if you can talk to her brother and get him to tell what it was.
Well, he laughs every time he talks about it.
Well, I can't remember what it was. He did so many things.
That's right.
I'm going to get older. Not much.
No, we're all pretty close in age. In the book are these stories about growing up. And I tried to make it funny and fun. I didn't tell the bad stuff, Joan. I left it just for our family. But I do have an uncensored version if you want to give me some money. In later years, my brother and I were asked to help take care of my parents in Minnesota. My mother had had a stroke, and my father had taken care of her for 20 years. He did an incredible job. And so we brought them to Minneapolis and took care of them in the later years there. In the back of the book is a poem that I wrote called The Hat. It's really a metaphor for life about passing a generation, but I will read it to you. Ray's 10-gallon cowboy hat, upon his head it always sat, a constant companion tried and true, for it to sit right, always a little askew. If we put it on his head, he'd always turn it just a bit. No matter how you put it on, he had to adjust it. Kind of tattered, a little stained, in his last years, the only thing that remained the same. In the nursing home, it disappeared for a while. When it was found, Ray wore a great big smile. He wore it with great pride, just as he were ready to ride on his pinto pony he loved so dear. Old Paint, his companion for 27 years. A sack of potatoes with the Native Americans was fair trade for this black and white pony when Ray was in 7th grade. Not able to go to school because he was sick, Old Paint was Ray's constant sidekick. My father wasn't able to go to school for a whole year because he had what was St. Vitus dance. And at that time, how many of you remember that we didn't have antibiotics and those kinds of things to help? And so my grandmother Kamak would take a very small portion of arsenic every morning and give that to him, and that was the antidote that they used for him so he could recover, and then he was able to go on and continue. But he had missed that whole year of school. Old Paint was Ray's constant sidekick. Later, Ray's sweetheart was Gail. To high school, they rode their horses through snow, wind, and hail. A cowboy and his sweetheart's long ride, 67 years together, side by side. Ray and Gail and Old Paint are all gone. The hat on the shelf waiting for a grandchild to